Good evening, Trump family. Welcome to Open Source News. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on that notifications bell so you don't miss a thing. Alright, the following is a collection of news from Patriots. Let's get into the news. The ultra-billionaire and Twitter owner Elon Musk is turning some heads with some words he has for the meeting this week at Davos. As many of you know, the World Economic Forum is gathering in the Swiss mountain village this week for its annual meeting that was infamously named the Great Reset back in 2020. Musk made the remarks in response to a lengthy Twitter thread by Michael Shellenberger about the Davos gathering, and one of the tweets Shellenberger noted that the WTF wealth is managed by an internal investment committee that seeks to incorporate environmental, social, and governance. That's ESG criteria, and its investment strategy to manage the foundation's long-term strategic reserves. And that's where Musk chimed in, tweeting out, quote, "The S in ESG stands for satanic. Elon, don't hold back. Tell us what you really think there, my friend." And just a day or two later, Musk responded to a Twitter user who shared this video from the Davos gathering. Everyone listen to this. Questions, Mr. Schwab? I think the metaverse is a great tool to reinvent the way we work. But in general, my question is, in the moment, we see quite a big decline in trust in political institutions and also in their representatives worldwide. And a meeting here in Davos, to what extent do you think this can strengthen to try and eat this trust again? I would refer all afterwards also to Brad Smith. I think without what is essential is to make sure this is the system as such. So technology can be trusted. And one of the village partner, for example, is Interpol. So we work together already, with the necessary instances to make sure such a system is as safe as it can be. Okay, folks. Now, if you can believe it, Klaus Schwab just said there that the WTF can be trusted because it uses Interpol. Interpol is the International Criminal Police Organization. And he thinks that by implementing an internal police state, that's going to evoke trust and confidence. And that's how Musk responded to this absurdity as well. He tweeted out, quote, "WTF is increasingly becoming an unelected world government that the people never asked for and don't want. Truer words have never been tweeted." Now, if you don't know what this ESG standard stuff is, that must refer to a satanic key. Again, it stands for environmental, social, and governance criteria, ESG. And it refers to scores that corporations get in relation to those three areas so that investors could show they're investing in companies that advance left-wing social justice goals. And that includes, of course, green energy, racial equity, even abortion access. It's basically the attempt to pressure companies to become more and more woke, and many have noticed that the ESG scores are eerily similar to China's social credit system. And the social credit system, of course, is a technocratic project that seeks to control human behavior, so as to maximize safety and sustainability. It started in China back in 2014. And when a full nationwide rollout in 2020, it's been described by the South China Morning Post as China's most ambitious project in social engineering since the Cultural Revolution. According to one anthropological study, the aim is for the national system, once fully functional, to allocate a social credit score to members of the public based on their social, economic, or other activities and deeds. And with the so-called red list and blacklist, the aim is to effectively regulate both the behavior of private citizens as well as that of businesses. So the social credit system leverages big data, which monitors the geolocation, purchasing history, social media, content usage, and footage from CCTVs that are equipped with facial recognition technology, all to determine everyone's compliance with government rules, mandates, and goals, or, of course, their non-compliance. And those who are non-compliant can see their bank accounts frozen. It can see their passports digitally revoked. That gives you all kinds of civil liberties being taken away. It is, according to Foreign Policy magazine, the closest thing we have ever seen to the actualization of an Orwellian system controlling virtually every aspect of human life. But many are wondering, what if China's social credit system is just the beginning? Could it be that that is precisely what the demons in Davos have in mind for the world? It's now widely recognized that ESG scores have the potential of turning into the internationalizing is something akin to China's social credit system. And this is precisely where the demons in Davos come in. They're the technocrats who are plotting the architecture of just such an institutionalized social credit system. And what we have to understand is that technocrats by their nature control. That's what technocrats did. That's the job description. Technocrats who oversee a globalist system, globalism simply being a vast interlocking mechanism of technology and telecommunications that creates an effective single worldwide political and economic system. Globalism is ruled by technocrats. And technocrats, like technology itself, are all about control and management. That's by definition what it means to be a technocrat. And the social credit system is a technocratic project that seeks to control human behavior so as to maximize safety and sustainability, particularly for the WTF ecological sustainability. And as part of that, there are punitive measures for those who refuse to go along with the program. There are all kinds of canceling Cindy platform things that you and I would be absolutely powerless to stop powerless. If it weren't for people like Elon Musk, who are actively building a parallel economy designed to crush these tyrannical efforts. And the torquing the blowback against this, the WTF, is very real. And the hilarious part is that DevOps is doubling down on this nonsense that Elon is calling out. They actually published a piece on their site, defending the ESG in the midst of the enormous and rightful pushback against its obvious weaponization. But that pushback has been enough to, at least in some sense, get the Davos crowd to rethink their messaging. Jack Sobick made an interesting observation, noted that there's been virtually no reference to their Great Reset framing this year's Davos, and it's not because they've abandoned the agenda. It's because they've received so much blowback, so much bad press, and this year, in particular, given the Europe is going through a cost of living crisis. So images of the glamorous Swiss resort and delegates coughing champagne, they're not a good look. It's an optics disaster, quite frankly. And it explains why so many world leaders have opted not to attend Davos this year. So the good news is more and more the world is on to these guys. Even the New York Times is realizing that the world is changing in a way that's leaving these adults in Davos far behind. And those sentiments, the WDS days coming to an end, could be no better expressed than what we just heard from the one and only Elon Musk. And then, this is some big news. National Archives tells Representative Comer it has to consult with the Justice Department before sharing Biden's document information with Congress. Joe Biden stored top-secret files at the Penn Center in D.C. Government officials discovered more classified documents at Joe Biden's Delaware home in the garage next to his Corvette. Representative Comer last week requested 5 things. 1. All documents retrieved from Biden's personal office at the Penn Center to all internal documents and communications regarding the documents retrieved from Biden's personal office at the Penn Center. 3. A list of all the people who had access to Biden's personal office at the Penn Center for all documents and communications related to the handling of the classified material by Biden's personal lawyers, including but not limited to their security clearance status. And 5. All documents and communications between or among the White House and the Department of Justice or National Archives regarding the documents retrieved from Biden's personal office at the Penn Center. The National Archives finally responded to Representative Comer on Tuesday and said it has to, quote, consult with the Justice Department before sharing any information on the Biden documents scandal. Quote, the DOJ has advised it will need to consult with the newly appointed Office of Special Counsel in the DOJ to assess whether information can be released without interfering with the SEO's investigation. Archivist Deborah Seidel-Wall wrote in a letter sent Tuesday night. Feds borrowed $4 billion per day in 2022, totaling $10,000 per household. Federal debt soared by $1.4 trillion in 2022. As Joe Biden and Congress approved multiple new spending packages. U.S. Congressional Budget Office this month released the final details of federal spending of last year, showing the federal government had a $1.4 trillion deficit last year, borrowing roughly $82 billion in December alone. Quote, this is not a pretty picture no matter how you look at it, said Maya McGuinness, president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. She continues, quote, there are times to borrow like during a pandemic or a major recession. And there are times where we should ratchet down the borrowing like now when the economy is strong and inflation is hot. Megan has pointed out last year's borrowing totals more than $10,000 per household and $4 billion per day. The federal debt surpassed $31 trillion in the fall. The higher debt was fueled in part by a rash of several $1 trillion in additional spending bills since Biden took office. Initially, that spending received broad support as a response to the pandemic, but later bills received more opposition from Republicans. 1,000s of migrants are apprehended and 1,000s got away last week in just one Texas border sector. Del Rio Sector Chief Patrol Agent Jason D. Owens tweeted a weekly recap, indicating that his agents apprehended 6.91 thousand migrants during a 7-day period just last week. In addition, Chief Owens reported an additional 3.41 thousand migrants classified as gotaways. This brought the total known number of border crossers to 10.31 thousand people. The apprehended migrants came to the United States from 79 different countries. In December, the Department of Homeland Security put a gag order on CBP employees. The order prohibited Border Patrol managers from releasing any interim arrest statistics, such as the weekly recaps tweeted by Owens and other Border Patrol sector chiefs. The order was sent under the title DHSOPA Guidance on Social Media Coordination for the lifting of Title 42. DHSOPA is the acronym for the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Public Affairs. The order was later clarified to impose a ban on the direct communication with outlets or platforms regarding the release of migrant apprehension statistics without DHS approval. The source also shared that the new directive will allow DHS to control the narrative as the looming border crisis is expected to worsen after Title 42. Now that the end of Title 42 has been postponed, the Biden administration appears to have lifted the gag order now that the numbers or falling apprehension statistics appear to be more readily available. Frank Biden peddled White House influence in Joe Biden's administration. Joe Biden's younger brother Frank Biden peddled White House influence during Joe Biden's time in office. According to a report that indicates the Biden family business remains operational even since Joe Biden concluded his campaign for office on at least 2 separate occasions, Frank Biden publicly cited Joe Biden as a means by which he has influence despite holding no government position or relation to the White House other than by having the same last name as Joe and being his sibling. In October, Frank Biden spoke in Venice, Italy as the keynote speaker at a Big Sick Technologies conference about, quote, the future of global healthcare. Biosig Technologies is a health technology company that Trump was not paid for by Frank Biden. He although refused to disclose the sponsor. Another case of Frank Biden's influence peddling occurred in Boston of 2021. The year after Biden entered office on behalf of the same company Biospheric Technologies, Frank Biden told health professionals at a dinner that he had a bully pulpit due to my brother Joey. That event, Frank Biden boasted of the quote, bully pulpit that I have as a result of the privilege of being associated with my brother Joey and vowed to quote, do everything in my power to support you to get the job done, and to get federal dollars to your research. A video of his speech shows Frank Biden's working history with Biosig Technologies is unclear. According to report, Frank Biden initially told reporters that he had worked for the company for a year before reversing himself, claiming that he in fact never worked for the company, only that he gave Biosig Technologies quote, informal sales assistance. U.S. transfers weapons stored in Israel to Ukraine. The United States has transferred hundreds of 1,000s of munitions from storage in Israel to Ukraine. According to United States and Israeli officials, the U.S. and Israel agreed to move 300,000 of 155mm shells quote, some of which have already been transferred to Ukraine. A U.S. official told reporters while only U.S. military personnel are able to access the locked weapons warehouses, Israel has an agreement to use the ammunition in emergency scenarios with US approval. Moving the munitions is quote, American business and Israel does not need to approve the weapons transfer. Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Richard Hecht said the United States plans to replenish Israel with any transferred weapons, and IDF spokesperson said the transfer of weapons does not mean Israel is shifting his policy on Ukrainian military aid. Israel has condemned the invasion, sent humanitarian aid and taking in refugees, but the country has not sent in specifically military aid. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Open Source News. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing.